I'm glad y'all have found through this new link and our new approach here. We're now in the webinar, and if anybody else joins, they're going to find, well, number one, they have to find that there's a new link and that they had to register or should have. And then number two is they'll come in as an attendee, and then I'll promote them to panelist for this part of the discussion.
For a slight fee.
Yeah. But so I'll be kind of multitasking here. So Randy, if I get distracted, with my ADD and stuff, you can keep things moving. But one of the things I want to do for Lynn, and by the way, Lin O'Neill is our speaker, and Lynn, you can, Randy will formally introduce you when we get into that segment and get ready for your discussion on when you.
But Lynn is not on screen.
Lin O'Neill, yeah, she is. I can see her.
I can.
Well, sounds like a person.
Oh, okay. Here it is. I have to scroll down. There you go. When she was talking, I saw her and she disappeared.
Yeah. So anyway, so what we're going to do now is go around and, in the normal way we were doing things about noon, we would kick off and do our 30 seconds, go around, and then record the speaker. Now that we're doing kind of a mastermind format, we're going to go around, do a quick 30-second, and if there's any particular challenge or goal that you are trying to, that either brought you to this session or that just you're wrestling with this week, go ahead and throw that out. And the intention of that is that many minds is much better than one. And so as a mastermind, if you understand the mastermind concept, and if you don't understand the mastermind concept, I'll give you a great book. I introduced the mastermind early on. Go to Think and Grow Rich, Napoleon Hill's book, where the concept was, I think, originally coined. And you'll kind of get an idea of what we're trying to do, which is basically as a group, tackle maybe challenges that you have or goals that you have that maybe you're sitting there as an entrepreneur or small business owner trying to get your head around, trying to figure out a path forward. When we bring speakers in, we're hoping, we're adding their perspective to the mastermind. So we're adding that little bit of focus. So this one, we're going to focus on the things that Lynn's going to talk to us about today. And then if time permits, either in this week or maybe we'll carry it over to the next week, depending on where people are at, we will kind of wrestle with some of the things we learned today and how we can apply it. I mean, it's easy to say, everybody take what the presenters talked about and go make it work in your business. It's a little more dynamic, and we found this already in these things where we're kind of helping each other, and then maybe a follow-on one-to-one, or maybe the next group session, we kind of wrestle that one to the ground, or maybe say, hey, did you really, what Lynn was saying really related to one of the challenges or the goals that you had, okay? So if that makes sense, so let's go around real quick, and I'm just gonna go through in order of other than Lynn, and Lynn was kind of on first, but Robbie D, why don't you share what you're doing, and I'm going to have to text somebody the Zoom ID because somebody did exactly what I suspected. So Randy, keep it going for me.
Sure. Go ahead, Don.
Okay, I'm Rob Denenberg, and I have a couple of companies. Right now, I am focusing on
Make it short, Don. Make it short, though, okay, buddy?
I'm rehabbing a house. I also have another company, Greenhouse Communities, where I'm building personalized greenhouses. If you want any tips on rehabbing or greenhouses, come talk to me. Thanks, guys.
Well done. Well done. How about Don Huff? How about you? Could you
Don Huff.
Could you be as brief as he was? That was fantastic.
Thank you, Randy. Don Huff, I design and illustrate information that communicates, educates, inspires, and entertains. What that looks like is logos and branding, business cards and brochures, websites and social media, and exhibits of all shapes and sizes. This year, I've been doing a lot of book covers and logos. They seem very popular along with the website, something to do with the pandemic. If you'd like to meet and talk about your marketing, your visual communications, I'm at donhuff.com.
Well done. Thank you, sir. Appreciate that. How about Mr. Jason Madden?
All right. Yep. So Jason Madden, I own a company called Mad Logic. And I help small and medium-sized businesses build technology to make their day-to-day stuff more optimized and try to automate it instead of delegating. So it's a little bit where my specialty is. One of my struggles right now is finding the right audience and to make it like where networking and marketing gets me the most bang for my time, because that's really what eats up my time right now. So
well done. If you want to find the right audience, I think you need to talk to Mr. Don Huff. I think he can help. And you and I, of course, are already talking. So between the three of us, we are going to find you the absolute best audience. Robin, can you beat Jason with that? Can you take over and take us to the moon?
Well, I own a photography studio in Plano called Fly Hippie Photography, and I do all ages, all kinds of portraits. They're just in studio, not necessarily on location, although I do sometimes, and I don't really do events. All the artsy stuff in the studio.
Awesome. Well, thank you very much. Let's see. Mr. Jimmy Ruska's not visually there, so I'm going to skip him for a moment. How about Dawn? I'm from New York, so I'm going to say Dawn. Dawn, is it Tilger or Tilger?
Tilger, yes. First one's right.
All right, good. All right, Dawn.
Hi, everyone. Dawn Tilger with Club Z Tutoring. We tutor all the way from pre-K all the way up to college and everything in between. I am working on my LinkedIn page. I got some great advice that I needed to work on that. And so that is my goal for this week. I've made some changes. I actually put an ad up for a tutor on there. So anyway, I'm working on that to get it more professional so people can look for me on there to partner.
Excellent. Well done. And we could talk a little bit about LinkedIn if you care at some point. Of course.
Yes, I was going to reach out. I know I saw a lot of questions.
And I have a lot of questions too, but I also have some answers. And how about Mr. Lloyd Dobson?
Hey, how you doing?
I'm doing great. How about you, buddy?
Yeah, sorry I'm late. I go to a meeting in Frisco. It's kind of hard to get over here in time.
But you made it.
Yeah, I made it. So I take it that we're talking about what we're working on this week.
Mm-hmm.
Really, what I'm working on is getting better at follow-up. I mean, I do a pretty good job of reaching out, but I always think I'm going to follow up when I'm driving from place to place on my phone, and I never wind up doing that. So I really need to carve some time out of my day just to do follow-up.
There you go.
Yeah.
And that's as important as the initial meeting, if not more.
Yeah.
Excellent.
Exactly.
Excellent. Anything quick close?
Say again?
Is there anything else you want to just quickly add?
No, I think that's it for right now.
Okay, great. We'll have time later, hopefully.
Yeah.
Okay. Ronit, would you like to give us a quick intro?
Yep. One of my favorite compliments I get from a couple of my clients is that I can see my floors. I'm so excited. And that's what I do. I'm a professional organizer. I come in, organize, declutter, downsize, pack, unpack. So when your mess causes stress, call Ronit to get neat, which sees the space.
Okay. Let's
That's
see.
it.
Who did we miss? Jimmy Ruska has not physically shown up, David. So I don't know.
Jimmy, if you want to come on camera and introduce yourself, this is the opportunity to do that. If you want to stay off camera and just not bother, that's okay.
Hey guys, I'm Jimmy Ruska. I'm on the desktop computer. I don't have a camera on this one, but I work for Google Cloud. I just like meeting people and listening in. So
Okay,
not much for
great.
myself.
Well, you'll get a chance to be in the audience. That's fine. That's always an option. One of the reasons why we've restructured this meeting the way it is we do an active mastermind in a lot of these sessions where the people that we're going to be working with can be on camera and interact. And then there's always the option for somebody just to be in the audience or be an attendee and don't have to come to the stage, if you will. So that's part of the structure that we're putting into place here. Today we have our guest facilitator and event leader, Lin O'Neill, which Randy will introduce in just a second. Let's see.
I didn't introduce myself.
Okay, Randy, then I'll introduce myself, and then I'll give it back to you to introduce Lynn.
Sounds like a plan. I'm Randy Sablick. I've spent my entire career fixing, turning around, growing, and starting businesses from big to small. And I'm still doing it today. I started consulting about 7 years ago. When I moved to Texas, I decided in a conversation with my higher power that it's time that I paid back. And so I consult for people and give them my all, and I don't charge anything. So it's the bargain of a lifetime. So Randy Sablick, and my, I think my information's in the chat. I'll check. If not, I'll fix it. That's me.
That's beautiful, Randy. And by the way, one of us, a lot of times we all have problems. I was trying to figure out why people have such a challenge with this whole pro bono or free consultation and everything. And I think it goes, for me, it goes back to my dad, who said there's no such thing as a free lunch. And I think we now translate that in there's no such thing as a free consultation or any, I mean, again, it's one of those things. And that's actually still true in many, many, many cases. Right. But when it comes to the folks in this network and the people really that are continuing to serve it, that really is true. And anybody here schedule a one-to-one, a follow-up, as Lloyd was talking about, and you will find that it's just a conversation and we're just getting to know each other, and we really are striving to have impact and make a difference on each other's lives. And that's a good segue into who I am. I'm known as the Vision Warrior. I'm really focused on making sure that people understand, people being entrepreneurs, small business owners, or just your son or daughter. I'm also very, these days, very energized and very inspired by millennials, because I have 5 millennial children, and I'm very inspired by helping that generation understand why they're on the planet, because we each have a unique reason for doing that. That they understand that they themselves, all by themselves, not as part of a group, have unique value, and that also anything is possible. Therefore, if anything were possible, what would their life look like? Because there's so many things, especially over the last year, that have narrowed or we put ourselves in boxes and constraints that we don't have to, because possibilities abound even in the world as we sit today. So that's what I'm passionate about. I'm also passionate about building this community and other communities of servant leaders, and you are part of that, and living my ideal day, which you are also part of that. So with that, I'm going to turn it back. Randy, you are now. All right, Randy, you're on.
Okay, well, with all that behind us, welcome to Richardson Plano Networkers. And today is Friday, September 10th. And you know what September 10th is? It's the day before our day of infamy in our lives. So please take a moment tomorrow to pray for all of the people whose lives were lost during that fateful event. Lynn O'Neill is a thought leader, speaker, consultant, and coach who inspires positive, radical transformation and facilitates measurable strategy implementation. She has been a successful small business owner for more than 20 years, a graduate of Texas Women's University and the Pepperdine Graziadio School of Business and Management. Lynn possesses broad expertise in operations and human resources, coupled with an exceptional knowledge of organizational behavior. This skill set served her well in her role as a vice president and first woman corporate officer for Continental Airlines, where she managed several thousand employees and led the Inflight Services Division through reorganization and realignment. Lynn is an expert at assisting entrepreneurs like us who want to transform a startup into a sustainable company or expand a small business into a larger corporation. By helping owners identify more efficient business processes, creating powerful cross-functional teams, and or improving their manufacturing or other cost structure issues, she provides a path to transformation that is workable, creative, and energizing. RPN Masterminds, moderators and leaders of this series, have hundreds of years of success in all areas of business and life. They have been and are servant leaders willing to create a safe and impactful mastermind for those choosing to participate and step up to making the summer of 2021 their summer of success. Please join with me in welcoming Lynn O'Neill to our group today as our guest speaker.
Thank you, Randy. Thank you so much. And thank you, Dave, also, and all of you for asking me to speak with you. I'm excited. So I'm going to share my screen with any luck at all. Let me just pull this up. We'll see if this works. I know that Zoom they really have done a number of new changes. So let me try it one more time. Okay. Yep. All right, now it's my turn, Dave, to have this. I just had that up there. So let me see. All right, here we go. Let me try sharing once more. Those of you who haven't had this wonderful experience, Zoom has changed how you share your screen.
There you go.
Okay, there. All right, so I'm going to leave this. Let's see. Everybody see okay?
Yep.
This work?
Yes, ma'am. I see a lot
Wonderful.
of sheep.
Yeah, well, and we're going to talk about sheep. So this is one of my most favorite topics. At its core, it has to do with changing. And I know a lot of people speak on that topic, and a lot of us nod our heads when we hear about change. But for a lot of us, we don't ask ourselves, what have we done? So I hope to give you some additional insight and some incentive to reinvestigate this topic. And I got this title. William McKnight was formerly the CEO at 3M Company. And when I read this in a Harvard Business Review article, I said, boy, that's a speech in the making. But I do like to give him credit. So the takeaway from this is if you put fences around people, you get sheep, and that's a bad idea, okay? So everybody's got that. So let's just look at what sheep are. Primarily, you can certainly read this slide as well as I, but the issue I want you to remember about sheep and why they are appealing to traditional leadership is because they are easily led. They don't push back, they don't create havoc, they don't try to change things as much. And so if you are a command and control leader, which is what we valued in this culture for a couple of centuries, the fact of the matter is sheep are the very best kind of employees you can have. That's changed. So we're going to talk about sheep. We're also going to talk about fences. And I think it's really important to look at the fact that a fence is designed to restrict or prevent movement. So what kinds of fences might we have? Policy manuals are the one that always come to mind for me. Are they necessary? Sure. Do they also restrict innovation, creative thinking, happiness at work, and all those things? And I submit that yes, in fact, they do to a great extent. So who likes these darn fences anyway? Well, all of us like them sometimes. So Seth Godin, who's one of my most favorite authors, he wrote a book called Tribes, which you may have read. And in that book, he says, a tribe is a group of people connected to one another, connected to a leader, and connected to an idea. Well, that sounds like a pretty good fence to have around you. In fact, it sounds a lot like what you do in this mastermind. And I believe that that is truly positive. Let's look at the other side. Then he says, and this is our cautionary slide, relative to tribes, sometimes if you have a true tribe, try saying that fast 3 times, but sometimes in a tribe, one person leads and sometimes more than one person leads. And in a tribe, people want connection and growth, and really important for the purposes of this talk, and that is that people want something new. And that is the part that we're going to be dealing with here today. So what's on this slide is very unsheep-like, so not so good for fences, particularly in the something new arena, but sometimes simply in the connection. And I remember early on, because this is my 65th year of working experience. I started when I was 13 and I'll be 78 this month. So I've been at this for a bit. And one of the things that was really interesting to me is I actually worked in a company and for a boss that asks you not to bring any personal items to your office, not to have any pictures or anything like that. And they did not want you having chats during the workday. Compare or contrast that with today's open offices, which really promote the good communication and connection that we're talking about. So fences are undergoing radical transformation, to be sure. So the challenge is, and Randy kind of talked to this as well, those of us who've grown up accustomed to fences and sheep-like behavior, we have expectations for our workplace. And we have expectations for the employees who comprise the workplace in which we choose to work ourselves. So I want to tell you a little bit about this. This is a story. It's from the wonderful book, Hot, Flat, and Crowded by Thomas Friedman. If you remember when that was on the top of the New York Times bestseller list forever. So he tells a story in that book about a CEO who just had one hell of an awful day, pardon my language. And he comes home and his wife had a commitment and they've got a young daughter who's 2 or 3. And she wants to see her dad and she wants his attention. He's just trying to read the paper and have a glass of wine. You know, it's just been a tough day all the way around. So finally, he's had enough of her questions. And so he picks up, I think it was a Time magazine, and he tears the cover off and he tears it into little pieces. And on the cover, what attracted him was it was a very complex picture of a system. It was kind of like the inside of a computer. It was that complexity. So he tears that into little bitty pieces. He hands those to this little girl and he said, "Here, honey, here's a puzzle. Go put this together." Well, so help me. She's back in 3 minutes. 3 minutes. And he said, "Did you put that together?" And she said, "Yes." And he looks and she did. And he said, "How did you do that?" And she said, "Well, on the other side of the page, there was a picture of a person and I just made their face come together." So where a sheep would only have looked at that assignment and said, "Okay, I've got to do it. And here's the page I've been given." This little girl, in her genius of youth, turned it over, figured out a better way. And that's what we miss out on if our fences are too strong or too pronounced. So I love that story. I will tell you another one ever so quickly. So every January 1st, when we're not in a pandemic, I run the Lego table for a place called Vogel Alcove. And that is a wonderful center. It's a preschool, actually, for children whose parents are homeless. And they rent Fair Park. And it's a free day because if you think about it, if you're living in your car, all the rest of us are at home watching TV, having a beer, eating barbecue, you know, whatever we do. And the fact of the matter, if you're living in your car, you're probably not doing that. So the last time I did this, which was January 1st, 2019, this little boy who was 3 or 4 came up, and it had taken me 30 minutes at the Lego table to put together a robot. They gave me a map. It still took me 30 minutes, okay? So I finally got it up there, and I was so glad. And this little boy comes up, and his parents are standing behind him. And his nose just barely reaches the top of the table. It's a little tiny guy. And he is looking adoringly at this robot that I struggled to make. And I said to him, would you like to make a robot? And he said, oh, yes, please. So I just pulled a bunch of Legos to him, said, here's the map. And literally, much like this little girl, it was about 3 or 3.5 minutes, and he had done it. It took me 30. And I said to his parents, how did he do this? He's a genius. And they just smiled appreciatively. But he comes out of a home that is living, a home that is a car. He's living with his parents there, and he's attending school. And that's what we miss out on. So more about that as we go through. But I love both of those stories. And I think better than almost anything, particularly for the wonderful woman who does tutoring, that we forget that there are other ways to get there. And the early philosophers told us all roads lead to Rome, you know, so there's a lot of ways to get there. Okay, so when I was going through graduate school, almost none of which is applicable today, by the way, when I was doing this, I got an MBA in '74, and boy, has the world changed. But we valued command and control. Control was the big word. You had to have control of your organization. Part of that was done through metrics. Part of it was done interpersonally. Didn't matter. Control was the name of the game. And being able to make split-second decisions, which in an emergency, of course, is still critical. But lots of times when it's not an emergency, not so much. But there are 3 things that have been added. And so for leadership today, if you really want, in a nutshell, what has changed, here are the 3 things. These are very tribe-like characteristics or traits or abilities. So dealing with complexity, dealing well with complexity is the first one. Dealing with ambiguity is the second, and dealing with inclusivity is the third. And that, in fact, is what is making up our workplace today. So a little bit more about each of those. I use the dominoes because I'm going to come back to these later in this presentation. But when you were a little kid, if you ever did that exercise where you lined up dominoes, and if you touched one, it was supposed to make them fall in order in the same amount of time. That was a very complex problem because there were spatial kinds of differences. There were timing kinds of issues. That's the kind of complexity we're dealing with today. And if it was your first time to do it, you didn't have any rule book to go by as a kid. You just started stacking those. That's what a lot of the challenges in today's workplace, that's what they look like. There's no rule book for them. And then ambiguity, the second on that list, this is what it looks like. We can go this way, that way, another way, and probably 5 signs that aren't on this graphic. The fact of the matter is we have to be able to sort through. Now, is speed still important? Absolutely it is. So we've got to be able to sort through. This is the beauty of tribes. As one person, the chances, the probability of me always coming up with the right response is pretty close to nil. So what I need are my tribe and their wonderful ideas to help me get through this, to turn the page of the magazine over and see the face that if you put that together, that answers it. And then the final one is inclusivity. And to be really honest with you, if we do this one right, the other 2 will take care of themselves. I think this is the hardest one for most of us. At least that's what I'm told and sometimes what I feel. So I'm a triracial woman. And I'm a checkoff for everybody, so I'm well over 40. I'm female. I am African-American, Cherokee Indian, and Welsh. And so people love me because I'm like a bonus all over the place. It has helped my business immeasurably, and I'm not shy about telling them. But here's the deal. Have all of you heard, because this is being bantered about days, that inclusive, let's see, being included is asked to the party. Being, oh, have I gotten this wrong? Let's see. Diversity is being asked to the party. Being inclusive is being asked to dance. That's the way it goes. And so I want you to think, if you say, oh, we're inclusive and our company is great, how many of these folks do you have lunch with? How many of these people do you invite to your kid's birthday party? How many of these folks do you really know what makes them tick? So just, I love this slide. So let me just spend a second or two on it. The first thing that I love is in the first slide, there are people of different ages, different ethnicities. And originally I thought it was a wheelchair, but it was the bike wheel. So in your mind, put a wheelchair in that picture. And then if you look at the upper right, look at the shades of skin tone. That says it as well as anything I can think of. And then in the center left, we have a gentleman who appears to be a more seasoned, more traditional executive. Got some graphics in here as well. The last one, well, actually, let me go to the bottom right first. So there is also a seasoned female in what looks like a pretty darn responsible position. So that is terrific. And then the one on the left, and one of the things I'm fond of saying today is, I don't know if you have had your first transgender employee, if you've had that employee and simply did not know, but do your policies even reflect the existence of these individuals? Because they are everywhere. And I, for one, am grateful. They bring a whole different perspective. And so that's what this graphic on the bottom left is designed. It's designed to show different skin tones, different ethnicities, different upbringings. And it's also designed to show different leanings in other areas. So I hope that I think, so this is suitable for framing. If it were me, I would print out this slide and put it on my office wall in a nice frame, because this is one of the things on which good executives, whether you are self-employed or you're running the largest company on the planet, the fact of the matter, we're all going to be measured on this. And people, right now, people tell me there is a dearth of quote, good candidates. Part of that is because those good candidates don't look like what we expect. And part of it is that we are not welcoming, and therefore they do not want to come with us. So if you are having a challenge with hiring, let me encourage you to go back and take a look at this slide. It says it all, I believe. So the answer to those three areas is innovation. And the reason I love this slide is particularly for the graphic that's in the lower left, because how many of you grew up and on vacations, if your family took vacations, or when you were on your way to school or whatever, you actually drove through fields? Might be wheat, might be corn, might be green beans, might be squash, could be watermelon, could be anything. You know that today farming is vertical. So we are farming from the ground to the ceiling in hothouses or greenhouses. And that is the new nature of farming, because we're building condominiums and townhouses on all that beautiful soil where we used to grow our food. So that is part of innovation. I, for one, sort of miss the fields, in all fairness. And I do know that we can produce enough food to feed the planet. And that makes vertical farming a really good thing. So if you haven't looked at that, that's one of many innovations that are out there that are touching our lives already. So what's going away? Well, the top left is on its way out. The heavy smokestacks, fossil fuels. I know people in this state don't like to hear that, but let me tell you something. Take a look. That is coming. And then the bottom graphic, bottom right, what that is designed to illustrate is that our metrics that we measure need to be different. So as an example, they do need to measure diversity, equality, and inclusion. And then I always think about Greta Thunberg when I look at the center graphic, because she has taken, for such a young person, she has taken a planetary view. And we may like it, we may not, we may agree, we may not. I think that if any of you saw the movie Forrest Gump, where the guy, Billy, I think his name is, climbs the mast of the ship and he's shaking his fist at God when the lightning is coming down. That's kind of what we're doing if we're thinking we're going to stop this movement, because it is here. And the only question for us, and it does have to do with fences, is are we going to tear those fences down, or are we going to try, like the guy hanging on to the mast of that ship, that boat, are we going to try to stop the inevitable, because it is coming. So examples of fences. This is a pretty decent look at different kinds of fences. You may have seen some others as well, but we go everything from farm fences in the lower left to prison fences in the upper right, and everything that is in between. But when we have these fences in our workplaces, what do you think our employees see, and how do they feel? Let me give you a snapshot. This is a good indicator. So when I try to make change, when I work to submit a new idea, this is one of the reasons I became a consultant, by the way, is that I found that there were so many fences that it was easier and faster and more efficient and effective to do it from the outside than it was to do from within, because I needed too many step ladders to get over these fences. This is how most of our organizations look to our workforce. So cement this into our memory collectively and individually, because this is what we have produced, and now is the time. And you know, there was a need. I'm not faulting that. I was not alive during the Great Depression, and I always wonder why we call it great, because sure didn't look like it to me from what I've seen. But the fact of the matter is, we probably needed some more controls than what we had. That's fine. But we are in a different era, in a different world, and a lot of us are still operating with that same kind of mentality. And you know, one of the biggest changes, and I loved what Randy said when he talked about what he did, gratitude is coming back in. I hear it in every talk, in every networking event that I go to. Think about how each of us, I'm thinking it for myself, you think it for you. How are we demonstrating gratitude? If you want to take down a fence, that's one way. So a really important way. So this is how our employees see fences. Here are the actual traditional definitions of these. So communication hierarchies, you know, this person's got to sign up, then this person's got to sign up, and this person, for you to get something to the very top of your organization could take longer than the number of years all of us have left to live. So closed meetings, not being invited, bringing no one in who looks different, bringing no one in who has different ideas or who has different solutions, really rigid policies. I actually have a policy manual that I'm fond of showing, and I wish I'd thought to put it in here, but it is all the most beautiful artwork you've seen. It's about 25 pages. That's all it is. They actually got up to their hiring ratio to 1 out of 3 from 1 out of 12 by using this policy manual. And if you're ever interested in that, let me know and I'll shoot you some photos of it, because it is dramatic and wonderful. We, they cultures. Let me tell you one of the greatest signs. If you have executives who still have reserved parking, my friends, that is a we, they culture. If you've got executive bathrooms, that is a we, they culture. If you've got a table in the lunchroom where all the execs sit, whether it has a sign on it or not, that is a we, they culture. So if you hold policy meetings and there is no one from the very lowest rungs of your organization in it, that is a we-they structure. And it is probably the most harmful of all the fences, in all honesty, because it looks open. Those are the ones that have the recognition, lots of recognition policies and all this kind of thing. But the folks who think differently are not invited into the guts of how that company or that organization runs. So it's really important to look at insensitive cultural communications. That has to do an awful lot with diversity. Really, and I have a friend who has a birthmark, and it's on the top left of her forehead, and it's about the size of a penny. She said she's always grateful that Abraham Lincoln's picture is not on it. But the fact of the matter is that people ask her all the time, did you hit your head? And she will say, no, it's a birthmark. And they will say, no, did you, it's indented. Did you hit your head? That is an example of an insensitive cultural communication. So let me give you an idea of the other way. I have a daughter-in-law who's in Sacramento, California. She's a middle school teacher. In her classroom, a couple of years ago, she had 27 cultures represented, 27 languages or dialects. I said, oh my goodness, you have the United Nations. She said, I do, and I love it. And I said, so what are you going to do? She said, we are going to celebrate every holiday, every reason for celebration in every one of those customers, in every one of those customs that are represented by my class. And the parents could come and they could bring food. They could come in clothing that would represent whatever was being celebrated. Let me tell you something. She got Teacher of the Year for the state of Texas, and she got it for that. And she deserved it because the approach she took. Could you do that in your workplace? Absolutely. Why not? That's nothing more than taking down a fence. So it is worthwhile to look in your church. Look around. If you go to church on Saturday or Sunday, whenever you attend, or Wednesday, whenever you go, and wherever you go, and look around and see if all the people look the same, or if there is a representative number of other folks there, and start an initiative to correct that. That is taking down a fence. And of course, the age-old and tired. God, this is a tired thing. We've always done it that way. That's the way we do it here. Horrible, horrible, horrible. So the reason I keep this slide in this deck is because that puts into right now vision what kind of fences we face. If you've ever tried to return something at Walmart, they got fences. Target is a lot easier. Nordstrom's is the easiest of all. And Amazon just says, just take it to Whole Foods and drop it off and we'll handle the rest. Those are people who have removed fences. Doing policies that make people jump through hoops, those are fences as well. So this is my favorite fence. So it's a fence, but you know what? I could climb over that. I also can see what's on the other side clearly. So there's some ruts in the road, but that's okay. I could just walk on the other side. The grass makes me want to take my sandals off and just walk in it like I did when I was a kid. This is the epitome of good fencing. And think about what would correlate to that in your organizational culture. And how do you do that? And I suggest that what I say is find an entry-level employee and talk to them. That's your starting point. And then just know they may be scared to death when you come up to them. So let's think about how do we even learn to be sheep-like? How do we learn that it's okay to have those policies? And how do we learn that it's okay to have a we-they culture? And some people have parking places and some people have to trudge through the snow or rain or whatever. So we learn it in school. Young sheep, not the cutest sheep, by the way, but young sheep are easy to direct. The people who know me well know that I will not drive by grade schools at the time that school gets out, because you got all these kids lined up and they either are holding hands, and part of this is safety, and I understand that, or they've got their hand on the shoulder of the person who's in front of them. But the message is very clear: do not step out of line. When we teach kids to color with their brand new crayons for school, what do we tell them? Don't color outside the lines. That's why we got lines on this page. That, my friends, is telling them to be sheep, and that is a bad idea. That's where we start to learn. As teenagers, well, we want to be part of the flock. We want to be one of the popular kids. We want to be on the people who got straight A's list. We want to be on all of those things. That just keeps us in line. So the sheepness of who we are simply grows in its effect. And then when we go to work, this is what it looks like. So stick with this image for just a moment. Have you felt like that? Have you felt like that standing in line recently during the pandemic? Have you just wanted to say bah a couple of times just for the effect? Because that's where we are. And so this represents many of the organizations, large and small. By the way, one person, when I did this presentation last year once, in an earlier version, I might add, but one of the things that the person said to me is, Lynn, I have a small business. I don't have this. I said, how do you know that's true? And they were stuck for an answer. I said, who have you asked? And they had no answer for that. And I said, let me tell you, this is not limited to corporate giants. This is every organization. It's every supermarket. It's the airport parking. It is Walmart and Target. It is the local shoe store. It's our churches, synagogues, mosques, wherever we attend. It is all of those. And if you go there, and I hope that what goes to your mind the next time you go in, if you should happen, or if you walk into your office or I walk into mine, I hope if I hear this bleeding, this bat in the back of my head, I think, man, I need to take down a fence today or 10. So what we need, all right, bear with me. I've not done this before, but I really wanted to do this. This is what we need. We need lions. Can you hear them? All right, good. Oh, yes, there we go. That lion just keeps on going. Yeah. So this is what we need. People who continue to growl. And what we do not need okay, probably enough. I do love it, but you get the message. So lions, not sheep, please. Oh, by the way, on that sheep sound, did you hear the one sheep? There was one sheep that kept bleeding. It sounded like the same sheep over and over. That's probably somebody in management. That's a management sheep, okay? And then did you hear toward the last, there was one sheep and the sheep had this really deep voice and went, bah, like that. That was a CEO sheep. So, because that's how it sounds when we come in and we're actually fence building, although we may not recognize that that's what we're doing. So when we're leading, let's just think ahead, sort of to the Greta Thunberg. Let's just think about, or Thunberg, let's just think about a fenceless world, because I think that that is the objective. That certainly is my message today. Do I expect this to happen overnight? Regretfully, no. But I do believe that it can happen more quickly than any of us think. If every one of us takes down one fence a week, let me tell you something, we will be there before year end, because a lot of us are taking down the same ones. And what we'll do is give people the right to roar. And I believe that that is an incredible privilege. And it's something that we love. And if we really think in the depths of our heart, we want everybody else to have that too. You're a nice group of people. I just know that that's what your heart beats with. So Let's think about how we do it. So vision, everybody's heard that word forever, but there's a better word than vision. Think about your dream. And particularly for those of you who, like me, have small businesses, one of the things that is really important is that you share that dream. And I always take myself back. I remember the first day, August the 1st, 1980, when I opened my business. And I had a combination of extreme anxiety and glorious joy, and they were equally mixed. I thought, what have I done? And then I thought, oh my God, this is so exciting. So think back to that. That's where the dream comes from. If somehow you have lost that dream, or it doesn't have the same pull for you today, it may be that it's changed. Okay, that's reasonable. That's fine. Just be sure that it hasn't changed because you're thinking, boy, I can't do that. Because there's always a way. And you've got wonderful, helpful people in this group, and they are here to help you, as am I. So the fact of the matter is, go back. If you've lost that dream, go back and capture it again. I always think about the wonderful guy, if you've ever watched the movie Pretty Woman, the guy who's at the start, I use him all the time as an example. He's walking across Hollywood and Vine, and he says, what's your dream? Everybody's got a dream. What's your dream? So I ask you today, what's your dream? Everybody's got a dream. What's your dream? And I'll bet you it doesn't have fences in it. That's my bet. So the vision, or the dream, better said, I believe, and hopefully it involves complexity, because we like problem solvers. Some of you know that I teach an Alzheimer's and dementia training course for certified dementia professionals. Kind of a sideline for me. Did you know that even with Alzheimer's, there are two last things to go. One are early childhood memories, and the second is problem solving ability. Isn't that interesting? One of the last things to go. So we're always trying to remove complexity, and if it's getting in our way, that's a good thing. We smooth it out. On the other hand, we thrive on challenges. So I wouldn't try to shield anybody from a challenge. I don't think that's a favor. I actually think it's a control or a power move. So think about how that fits with your definition. Ambiguity, we are in an unprecedented time. Most of us weren't around in 1812, so we haven't seen a pandemic in this country. And now we've got recurring and new strains. So we are in times that we've never had to get through. That is ambiguity in its highest form. And what is important for us is that we figure our way through. That requires a tribe, and it requires no fences. We have so convoluted what we used to proudly talk about was a brainstorming process. The last 3 or 4 that I've sat in, people don't use them appropriately. So people inject opinions and do that, and it stops the flow of creativity. So go back and look at the reasoning for brainstorming, and go back and look at how to do that effectively, because it is magical if done well. And that will get you through ambiguity is the point. Then inclusivity, you've heard how I feel about that. I think it has to be. And I went to a segregated high school. I grew up in a town in Texas that pretty much didn't recognize inclusivity. I have long since given that up and embraced it wholeheartedly. I sincerely, with all my heart, hope that you have as well. If you ask me, was it easy? I'll tell you no. I made some really stupid mistakes and some comments I greatly regret as I learned how to navigate inclusivity. Is it important for being successful today and being happy? Because I think that is success. Yes, it is. Our style has to change. No more command and control. That, you know, the slide that I had that said not one leader, many leaders, that's one of the signs of a tribe. That's what that means. Measurement, oddly enough, has stayed, but what we measure is very different. So we do measure our success rate on solving the big issues. I'm a systems design person. That's one of my favorite things to study, read about, and implement. And that is about finding, not curing the symptoms, but finding the root cause. So when we have fences, don't just take the fence down, understand why that fence went up originally and what's different. That is the learning of pulling, of fence retrieval, basically. And then one of the things that is a real quick and relatively easy step to take in the fence removal process is to reward results. In fact, look at your reward program all the way. If you're still doing annual performance reviews, scrap them. They're ineffective. They've always been ineffective. Performance review is a 365-day-a-year job for anyone who is leading others. Peer group performance is the best that there is, and everyone needs to be loved and wanted, and everyone wants feedback. Good, bad, and indifferent, by the way. People want to be better. We get to show them how. So this is, in a fenceless world, this is what our job description will look like. If you're a leader, formal or informal, if you are leading, if you are one of the lions that's roaring out there, this is your job description, as well as the one for all the rest of us. And now there's another one, and this is the word for the next 10 years, or at least 5, probably 10, and that is meaningfulness. So let me ask you, if I went down your payroll roster for your company, or your client list for your company, could you tell me with absolute 100% assurance that you know what makes for meaningful work for them, or what makes for meaningful results for them? And I'll bet you there's not a person in this room, including me, who can do all of that. I'm working my way through it, and I am, unfortunately, I'm sad to report, not quite there. But so how do you find meaningfulness? You have to ask. And this is particularly important when we're talking about rewards. What is meaningful to me may not mean anything to you. So I think I've done a great job of rewarding you, and you think, well, they could have saved their money and time on that one. They may never say that to us. Think about the last time I got in my storage room in my building, I have got probably 15 awards I've been given. They're in my storage room. Am I willing to take them to Goodwill? No, I'm not. And I don't know they'd be meaningful to anyone else anyway. But the issue is I don't have them out, because either they gave them to me just because I was in a certain position, or I did one good thing in the year and there were people that I know that did 20 who deserved it. So they don't hold the same meaning for me. So when we recognize people and when we are, quote, rewarding people, be sure that it is something that they as well as you believe is a reward. That's what makes meaningfulness. So meaningfulness is a holistic, I'll let you look at this slide, but it talks about all the different areas. When you assign a job, if somebody's already done that job 20 times and they found it boring the first time, and certainly by the 20th, and you give it to them again, do you think that's meaningful? I don't think so. So ask them, do you want to do this? Who else would benefit from doing this? Who's got new ideas about this? Who, do we even need to do this again? That's one of the ones. I had this discussion yesterday with some people about hiring. They said, we got 3 positions. I said, so how did you get the open positions? They said, we had 3 people quit. And I said, do you really need those positions? And they couldn't answer me. And so we have this kind of muscle memory that when somebody leaves, we have to fill it. Let me tell you something, break that job apart. Give parts of it to new people who will find that challenging and growthful and meaningful. Do that. Just because you got a hole doesn't mean you have to throw dirt in it. So really look and think about how we're doing these things. All right, so I am going to pray that this happens. This is the opening scene from the movie with Will Smith called Collateral Beauty. If you haven't seen it, I want you to think about it, but let me set up the story. Will Smith has suffered great losses. he has been depressed and said he had a thriving business and it sort of ran without him, more or less. He feels like he has lost everything in his life that made sense to him. For many years, he had been putting together this gigantic piece of domino art. Remember, I said I'll come back to dominoes. This is the comeback slide. It meant more to him at the time he was doing this than did his family and did the people that he loved. He has now lost them. This is his reaction to how important this was compared to that loss.
Oh, Father, tell me, do we get what we deserve? Oh, we get what we deserve. And we're down, we go, 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 go. Oh, we're down, we go. We're down, oh, just say you love you now. Now say oh, yeah, just say you love you now. Now say oh, and they will run down. Now say oh, way down. Oh, let down.
Okay, you get the idea. So, yeah, isn't that, to me, that is such a poignant clip. What was so important to him before he experienced those losses no longer has any meaning. The beauty of it is that he is starting anew. And no matter how hard we have worked on our lives and our careers, we are in a different place in the world. And it is time, if ever there was one, for us to pull down those fences and to let the sheep free. Because we are the people we have been waiting for. And I thank you for your attention and your time.
Awesome, awesome, awesome. Thank you, Lynn. That was incredible. Everybody. Lynn, that was incredible. Any questions, observations? We've got a couple minutes here, and then before I have to do announcements and we land the plane. But any comments, thoughts, questions you might have for Lynn as it pertains to anything that particularly resonated with you today? Go ahead and open your mic and just ask the question. I see that Lynn has her mic open, but anybody else? Robbie D, go ahead.
Everything that you said resonated. In fact, it resonated so much. Please check out my website, greenhousecommunities.com, because I bring everything that you spoke about into my new business called greenhousecommunities.com, where I'm creating an inclusive community of personalized greenhouses where I can attract like-minded people into a new community focused on gardening. So please look at my website.
No, I most definitely will. And I hope you have a good PR firm, because you should be speaking about that. So I hope that you're doing that. It's a message that needs to be out.
I am the PR firm.
You may
Yeah,
need
Robbie D is getting some marketing advice and getting his message out, and that's part of one of the things is this mastermind we've been working on. But we're always looking for to expand the mind, if you will. So any ideas. That's one of the things, one of the characteristics and the culture we're trying to create is not a community of sheeple, but really a community of openness, of inclusivity, of creativity, and those kinds of things. So you hit the nail on the head there in many ways. I wouldn't challenge everybody here, by the way, because I will tell you, even going through and being both self-observant and self-aware in today's environment, as she hit on certain topics, in observing my own thoughts and behavior, there were times where she said things that I took them in a direction in my own mind that was not, I think, what she intended, nor were there things that I would agree with. But as I sat back and thought about maybe the fence that I had up that she had breached, I realized that, yeah, there's still commonality, there's still common ground. I think that the reality in this world today, when we talk about inclusivity, is there's no dialogue, there's no conversation, there's no how do we take this fence down, right? Instead of does the fence need to be there or not? Because obviously, if we're here and there's a fence between us, and one of us thinks there's a fence and the other one doesn't, that should be a conversation. Unfortunately, we holler at each other through the fences, and that's the part that I think is divisive and condescending in many cases. And it's not about organizations. We are an organization. We're not a company, but we're a network. And a network, I wrote down here very early, is when she was using the term tribe, you can convert that, and I have read Tribes, by the way. You can convert that to network. You can convert that name to community, and you can commute that if you have a more formal structure as company. But the reality of it is, the things that we're talking about here, if your first reaction was they don't apply to me, then you've got a fence and you need to go back and revisit that. And this will be recorded, by the way, and be up on our private Facebook page and also on our YouTube channel. And so I would encourage you to do that. But Lynn, very, very provoking. Robin, go ahead, open up your mic. Feel free.
Okay, as somebody who had born and raised in Texas, but not very Texan at all. I feel that from a different perspective and love it, but I can also say, not even in a company, but even recently, like on Facebook, I had somebody ask me, hey, will you like my business page? And I thought, who the heck is that? And then realized we were friends on Facebook, but I had him unfollowed, which meant there was something continually that I didn't like, but I didn't remember. So I looked, and immediately somebody asked, and it was not a political affiliation. It was a group of people asked me for their support. I will never support them. And my first thought is, well, I won't support your business. And I was out. Like, it can also be your customers that may see, if you're not being very inclusive with people. I'm not even a member of the group he wouldn't support. I just thought it was crappy. But like it kind of resonates out. I know for me, I have to be careful in photography. I have to show all kinds of people, or people will actually ask. I actually had that. I did not realize I didn't have African Americans on my website. And somebody asked, like, do you know how to shoot darker skin? And it had nothing to do with race. It literally had to do with the logistics of lighting a human. And I was like, oh my God, I totally need to show that I can do, like, there are little things that even you don't realize, because you might be totally inclusive in your head. You don't realize you're not showing that. And yeah, I loved loved everything you said.
I think you just roared like a lion. And I think that's wonderful because people won't say that to you unless there's trust. So you somehow formed an immediate, they were trusting enough about you to ask that question. And I would certainly pat you on the back for that because people won't do it. They just go look for somebody who's got a different website. So good for you.
Well, thank you.
Lloyd, I see you kind of waving your hand there. You have something you'd like to say?
Yeah, I was saying that most people don't put a fence, and the ones that think there's a fence also think that it's a good thing that there's a fence. Okay, and a lot of those people who think it's a good thing that there's a fence think that because it protects me, keeps me from losing what I have. It keeps other people out, and it allows me to accumulate and hoard my stuff. And I need a fence to keep other people out because there's only so much in the world, and I want it all. It's just a mindset. And the thought of getting rid of fences, I hadn't really thought about fences per se, but as you were talking, I recognize a lot of what you talked about, Lynn, and when I was at IBM. There's fences all over the place. And I just never thought of them that way because, like you said, you learn to be a sheep. And, and I was in the military, so I don't think there's anywhere more sheepish in the military. Do as I say, not necessarily because you want to do it or whatever, but you will do what I say. So for me to even recognize fences are really interesting. So thanks for the presentation.
No, thank you. And thank you for those observations. And sometimes I think it's rare, but there's this much that where fences are good. They keep us, as an example, seatbelts are a fence. Okay, that's a reasonable fence. That's okay. So there are those. It's just that we expand them beyond, as you point out, where they don't need to be. Yeah.
Randy, I saw you raise your hand, but let me do this. We've got 5 minutes, and I want to make sure that we do the announcements, and then I'll leave the mics open. And assuming Lynn wants to hang with us a little bit, we can continue on. That's one of the, again, rules of the mastermind is I make space for us to continue on after the speaker. But I also, as always, want to make sure that we've officially landed the plane at 1 so that people who have other commitments like Dawn, who had to leave, and other things, that they don't feel uncomfortable with doing that, because I do never want to abuse each of your most valuable asset, which is your time. And I do want to honor that. And just let me say, Lynn, thank you for sharing with us. This is the second time Lynn's been with us. She was back with us on January the 15th. And her talk there was the new world of work and things that were different. And you've been provocative and thought-provoking in both areas. And I do appreciate you giving us content, things to consider, because whenever our fences are challenged and we take the time to apply some creative energy to why and become, again, somewhat self-observant, self-aware, there's growth and learning that occurs. So I just want to thank you for that. Thank you for challenging us today. Let's give her a virtual or a physical applause here.
Thank you for having me.
Oh, it's been wonderful, and thank you for serving. Again, thank you each and every one of you for being here, being authentic, being willing to consider what Lynn is saying in your own way. This tomorrow for the men, and again, there's no intention not to be inclusive, but women, just so we know, women, I think, are amazing at supporting each other. There's a lot of women's groups. They've learned to do that in a way that men can only dream of, in my opinion. And as I often say, when it comes to help, we're always willing to help, but admitting we need help is not a thing we do really well. So we have a men's breakfast network once a month on Fridays. And tomorrow, it's usually the first Friday, because the first Friday was Labor Day weekend. I mean, I'm sorry, did I say Friday? Yeah, I did. So it's the first Saturday of the month, and so Saturday was over Labor Day weekend. So it's tomorrow. And so for the men in the group, I'd encourage you to join us. You can join us virtually or in the room at the Pancake House like we do. The meeting is conducted similarly as we do on our Wednesday meeting. And so I encourage you to that. Next week, we will have a mastermind. I don't have a guest leader of the discussion like we have today with Lynn yet, but if we do have somebody, I'll add that. But for now, we're going to take some of the thoughts that Lynn has given us, some of the thoughts we got from Rocky Marble and other people, and also just some of the challenges we're dealing with, and we're going to wrestle those to the ground next week. So I encourage you to join us there. Monday, if you want to get out and have a drink and hear some music, every Monday we have our Monday mixer, our weekly mixer. One of the things we learned in the pandemic, right, was we can't just do it quarterly because a lot of the groups can't handle a lot of the restaurants, a lot of people can't handle 70 people in one place once every quarter. So we decided to break it into weekly where we have 10 or 15 people. We kind of know who's there. We can space as we're comfortable, and we can have some good food, get happy hour pricing here at Porta de Roma in Richardson, right across from the Eisman Center. And so that every Monday, Wednesday is our big networking meeting, if you will, where we have usually around 30 people that are there, mostly in the room, but also on Zoom. There's still a contingent on Zoom, and that's fine. And then next Friday, again, we're going to do this. This is, by the way, if you registered today, you should get a reminder via Zoom, which will give you the link, or even you could put it on your calendar, and so that you won't have to re-register every time. So hopefully this will make it more convenient. It reduces some of the administrative overhead for me. And I hate to sound selfish, but I invest about 25 hours a week, as Randy knows, in doing the things that we try to do with this group. And so I'm trying to be better at doing that. We never want to stay in one place. We don't want to have fences up on progress. We want to learn how to do things better, and we want to have continuous improvement. And so if it doesn't work, we'll change it a different way. So anyway, just so you know, I appreciate each of you being here. Any other announcements? I'm thankful again for each of you, or gratitude you'd like to share, because we did talk about gratitude today, and that's a very critical component of this group. Is, I believe, the three components to happiness every moment is, being grateful, giving, and growing every day, and we try to do that every week in this group. So any other it's 101, the mics are open, and it's anybody can share what they like at this point.
Well, since nobody else is jumping in, I will. Lynn, I got to tell you, I've been part of this for, I guess, as long as Dave's been doing it and as long as I've been in Texas. And I have to tell you, for me, this was the best talk that I've heard. I mean, and I have high standards, as Dave well knows. So that was really fantastic. And it also helped me in another way. I do this consulting thing, and I tell people that I don't charge. And people have a problem with that sometimes. They don't understand. You got all this experience. Why don't you charge? You helped me with that today, because you said people want to be better. And I agree with that. And now I can answer that I get to help show them how, and never mention money. So thank you very much. I appreciate that.
Thank you for what you do.
Awesome. Anybody else? Any other thoughts, observations, questions for Lynn, or for anybody for that matter? This is a time where we can apply. Robin, again, we still have to get together and talk about the leveling up our visual presence in whatever platform, because on the headshots and those kinds of things, I want to figure out something that we can offer to this community.
I've actually been thinking about it. I have some ideas for you now.
Oh, I'd love them. I just know the question or the observing the challenge, and but I only know enough to be dangerous. I know what I like and what I don't like, but I don't know how to get what I like unless I have somebody like you.
Right. That's a lot of people have that with photography. Now, this is another thing. You were talking about women tend to tribe up better than men. This is another thing that women are better at. And it's like a sociology experiment in the studio. A woman will walk in and be like, okay, so I want to look 20 pounds thinner. My ears are lopsided. My nose is too wide. My eyes are too small. That's what we're dealing with. So I now know everything she's insecure about that I need to work with. A man will walk in and be like, all right, let's go. When they see their photos, they'll be like, dear God, I'm bald. I know. It came that way. Like, I didn't know that. Like, men, and it's actually interesting. I don't know if Lynn will agree with this, but what I've seen is women will focus on that second grade kid that told us our nose was too big, and we will always believe our nose was too big. A man will focus on, I was captain of the football team when I was in high school, and that's where their confidence lands. So they're astounded if they're bald because they thought they looked like the high school football team, where a woman will be like, oh, good. Okay, you didn't make my teeth look crooked or whatever. Yeah, it's hilarious.
Robin, you actually remind me when my first supervisory job, I supervised 123 flight attendants. And I had this woman named Midge Hastings, and Midge wore, Midge wore fluorescent pink lipstick, which was not standard. So I caught her one day and I said, Midge, I'm going to have to send you back to recurrent makeup. And she said, oh, good. I just love those people, which was my first cue that this was not her first trip. And so she goes back, she comes back, she looks beautiful. I rave. I mean, oh my God, you're looking great. About 3 weeks later, I see her in the flight attendant lounge and she's got that darn fluorescent pink lipstick on again. And I said, Mitch, can we talk? And she said, sure, I love talking to you. So I said, I noticed you had the lipstick that I thought that you, she said, oh, yes. She said, Jimmy wants me to wear it. Jimmy's her husband. And I said, tell me more. She said, this is the color lipstick I had on when we met when I was 15. I gave up. You think she's going to change that lipstick? No, because when she puts that lipstick on, he looks at her and thinks she's 15 and he is too. And she looks at him and thinks he's 50. I had lost that battle. It was gone. So,
yep, that is true. Yep, it is. Yep, you're not going to win it. Nope. And I have that if I have a shoot where it requires hair and makeup, which a lot of times it does. I will absolutely have that where somebody will be like, I don't like this lipstick. That's not what I do.
Yeah.
So if you have a shoot with me that requires hair and makeup, I could probably do the makeup, but the hair is going to be a challenge.
Right? That's, yeah. You know what? Let's try to work on that.
Oh.
That's the end look.
That is very much the end look. My husband has shaved his head off and on since we've been together, and he has a head full of hair and always shaves his head.
Mine's getting there, you know, or leaving there.
Leaving there. Mine's leaving. Yeah.
It's going on a jet plane.
GQ will come calling.
I laugh all the time. I wish I had my husband's hair so bad because he's Puerto Rican. He has like this thick, like really curly, like, yeah, it's amazing. I was like, why did I get this stressed out mess? I want that.
My motto is the Lord giveth and the Lord taketh.
Yeah.
And Robin, your hair looks great. So.
Oh, well, thank you. But but this was great. This was awesome. Awesome.
Well, thank you for joining it. There's never the same as Lynn will tell you. We both have done speaking from the stage. We both have done audiences, and it's the audience that makes the talk. It's not. I mean, yeah, we can bring the catalyst, we can bring the discussion and the energy, our own energy, but it's the energy of the audience that really makes it pop. And so everybody contributed. Lynn did an amazing job, as Randy said, but it really is, you know, it's a team sport. Life is a team sport.
Is it hard with our
bumper sticker?
What?
That's a bumper sticker.
Right.
What was the
what I
I couldn't hear
said.
you, Robin. You broke up.
Oh, was that hard to speak with our cameras off? That would have been really hard for me to give a presentation to headshots.
It's actually interesting because what I've learned in my own is that I originally didn't want to do even the Friday sessions where we had speakers. I wanted the audience there for myself because I wanted to see the body language and stuff like that. I found that doing what we do in the beginning, the 30 minutes of getting to know people, and you kind of embed in your, at least this is me, I mean, Lynn could speak to it herself, but for me, once I know who's here, I don't have to necessarily see, because now I kind of have a sense of who's in the audience and I know who I'm speaking to and kind of what they're dealing with to a level, because that's about the best you can do even when you're speaking in front of a crowd. You've got to pick, when I used to speak for much larger, from the stage in a larger group, you would pick a few people. You get to know a few people before you got up to the stage. And I would find myself, and then it was like, make sure I touch on everybody or at least move my eyes around so I'm not just talking to Robin. But anyway, I'd be interested. How do you feel about that, Lynn?
Well, I really love to see people on camera. I feels like I'm talking in a cave.
Yeah.
And understanding that, people have other things, like they've got to pick up children or they've got appointments. So, but it's very hard to gauge the engagement level.
Right.
Without seeing people. So I personally really love having people where I can see them, because you know how you can just darn near, and particularly on Zoom, you can see when the light bulbs go on. It's like,
Yeah.
You can also see when they're not paying attention too.
Yeah.
Well, and that's the other distraction is, there's a yin and a yang, and there's a good and a bad on everything. And all those are legitimate points, because one of the things also is, if I happen to have focused on Randy and Randy decided to eat a sandwich because this is a lunch meeting, all of a sudden I'm going, okay, what kind of sandwich is my brain? I have ADD. So my brain's going, what is he, or if Randy's yawning, I'm going, okay, he doesn't like what I'm, and I'm not picking on Randy. I'm just saying I might do that. So
next time,
there's
all
a
you
balance.
have to do is say, Randy, am I boring you?
And that would be an interesting tack. But the other thing that I find fascinating with what you were saying, Lynn, and this is interesting. There's another technology that kind of launched, like the Be Connected community and the Zoom that we're talking about, called Clubhouse, and it's all audio. And I'm on Clubhouse, but the interesting thing is, and I've been brought to the stage, kind of like we did here, with people in the panelist, as well as people that if maybe don't want to be on camera. I think that's a better balance, because then I can, if I want to bring somebody to the stage and there's other people just listening to what they're saying, I can turn the camera on and they see who's talking. And I'm also seeing who I'm engaging, whereas I don't know who these people are on Clubhouse. Some of these people, they'll talk forever, and I'm going, and everybody's going, oh, you're great and wonderful. And I'm going, yeah, I don't know. I mean, it really is a different, it's a great way. There's a lot of people on it, but I think it's also, there's a lot of people listen to podcasts, don't do anything with them either. So, and I have a podcast, so I'm not dissing that either. I'm just saying it's kind of fascinating. I'm still, I'm always learning and connecting the dots, if you know me. And so I'm always trying to figure out what works. But I really do like, obviously, the technology challenges that we experienced in the beginning of this aside. I do like doing it, as a webinar and bringing people up. And like Zip came in and he just wanted, I allowed him to opt out to being promoted to panelist, so he didn't have to train, because if you know Zip, he's usually mobile, and he probably just wanted to listen into the conversation, so he got what he needed out of it.
Anyway. See, if I was the presenter, I would be like, okay, everybody turn your camera back on. I need to see that you're looking at me.
Oh yeah.
I'm going to be like, put your phone down, because I'm about to make a cool point.
That's right.
I need,
That's good.
you know,
That's one of the challenges. I've talked to a number of people who are built, have and audiences in that community, and a lot of those folks are saying, yeah, it was fun while it lasted, but I'm realizing that I get very little engagement post show. Post, yeah. Some people, and again, here's the deal. There's a lot of people who talk a good game and and they say, oh yeah, I've gotten, I'm converting everybody to Instagram and doing, and some of that is just pure BS.
no.
But David, you just hit a thought. Okay, when we used to do these only in person, the speaker would always end with hand out business cards, piece of literature. You can reach me here. You can reach me this way. I welcome, your feedback, blah, blah, blah. We don't do as much of that. And I wonder, obviously it's up to the speaker, but, maybe we should ask the speaker, would you be willing to entertain people reaching out to you, et cetera? Because I'd love to continue this conversation with Lynn. That whole section on fences just mesmerized me.
One of the things, Randy, one of the things we've done, and by the way, I'm glad you brought that up because I'll tell Lynn, whenever somebody in the new format and the way we've been doing it through the zombie apocalypse, when a person comes and speaks, I add them to our network directory as a recent guest. And so if they don't have, sometimes speakers come and they're really speaking to sell, or they're speaking to promote maybe their book or their program, or their consulting, whatever it is. And that's okay. They'll have a link that
they got to eat too.
Yeah, they'll have a link that they can click on. We don't pay the speakers. We didn't pay them coming here. But by the same token, we love to have, there are people that come back and maybe watch the video later on or whatever. And so make sure, Lynn, I have I think I have your contact information.
And I put it in the chat for everyone also.
Okay, well, I'll get that when it's over. I'll get a printout of the chat, and I'll make sure that we get you added as a recent guest. So I started doing that to make sure. So, because we have a what we call a roster, we have members directory, and then we have the most recent guests. So that gives you a little bit of what I call a tail.
Yeah. Lynn, where do you physically reside?
Oh, I'm in downtown Dallas.
Oh, you're local.
I'm at Elmanacker. Yep.
Elmanacker.
Man, I want to live in downtown Dallas. You have no idea how badly I want to live in downtown Dallas.
Come on down. I'm in what was previously, years ago, up till the 80s, I think, the first federal savings and loan building. And it's a condo building, and it's wonderful because it has no pay, no tip valet, and it's got a 24/7 concierge. And I
love it.
Yep, it doesn't get any better. And we're right across from that new hotel that I think is a Hyatt or a Hilton, one of those, but it's called the National. And they've got beautiful restaurants. If you have a special occasion on the 48th and 49th floors, there you're at the top. It one time was the tallest building in Dallas, and they have 6 floors of hotel, and then they've got 400 and some odd lofts in this big tower. And that building was vacant for 3 decades.
Wow.
And it took them 2 years to get the asbestos out.
I'll bet.
I don't know if I want to breathe around that building, but there's that.
Hold your breath as you go by.
No kidding. But it's downtown is, it was very vibrant when I first moved down here.
Right.
It is slowly coming back, but our homeless situation is really sad.
Yeah.
And I just spoke at the city council meeting a couple of weeks ago in favor of additional shelters and housing, affordable
Absolutely.
housing. So,
if you're really passionate about that down there, I would encourage you. Have you ever heard of the Suitmobile?
I don't think so.
David Timothy serves the homeless in downtown Dallas. It's a nonprofit that I've consulted with, worked with down in downtown Dallas, and they have both. They feed roughly 250 homeless people a week or whatever, or yeah, through the course of a week. I mean, in that, and they have Soupmobile Village. Consulted with them to create a thrift store to fund that. They even now have Soupmobile Church, and it's homeless people because they're, you know, the whole thing is the Bible teaching a feed my sheep, you know, and so it's all wrapped around that. But it's not a,
All the sheep are inside the fence.
Yeah.
but it they
That's a
actually
good fence. Yeah.
they have their annual fundraiser event is called Celebrate Jesus, and they put up well, it started at the Hyatt. They moved to the what's the other building that has, it's kind of downtown, but anyway, they bring 500 homeless on Christmas Eve day,
Oh, I've seen that. Yeah.
and that's their big fundraiser. So you literally pay a donate to serve the homeless for that
That's cool.
event. For that
I
event.
love that. Do you know, Dave, where their soup kitchen? I've never seen the soup part. Is that
Yeah, it's a mobile soup kitchen. So basically, what they do is they have a van. I actually we did a promotion. My brother-in-law was the development director for them for a few years, Lon Ricker, and he was part of that, and that's how I got kind of roped into that as well. And we would go down there, take the whole family. My kids, when my kids were younger, we'd go down there on Christmas Eve and donate so that we could all be there. We would welcome the homeless. They'd come off of a bus. We'd give them applause. You know, that red carpet. They'd go in. They feed them a big banquet, usually hosted by the mayor, and then they get to spend the night, Christmas Eve.
And I think that's wonderful.
In the
That
hotel.
would, to me, that would be equal to Bogle Alcove, which I think is the greatest thing ever.
Yeah, I mean, I'm all about those CERT community. I'm about obviously building a community of intentional servant leaders, but also reaching beyond our own fences, if you will, our own organization, and serving the community that we're part of. And so any opportunity to do that, we're always looking for that. And I wish we could do more.
Well, I'm actually restructuring. I've got 2 new businesses opening in September, and I am restructuring one of them, it's what's delayed it, to be a B Corp. And I'm actually going to do, there's a lot of money out there for research on homelessness. And
What is a B Corp? Sorry.
it is a for-profit corporation that nestled within it is a not-for-profit.
Okay.
Right.
So you got, the downside is you got to fill out 2 sets of taxes. Okay.
Okay.
But you know, in order to be eligible for grants, and there is more than $1 billion that goes untapped every year. And I'm just, there's so many needs, it makes me ill.
Wow.
So we're gonna go after, and there are some people, a lot of these people just, they're either vets who've got terrible PTSD,
Right.
or they are people who've so given up that they don't know anything but on the street. And it is, and then there are some who, just to give them a leg up, will change their lives. And so, and I think we have to address all of those. My hunch is when they were growing up, they never said, I want to be homeless on the streets of Dallas.
Yeah, right.
No, some of
doubt
them love
that.
it. Some really do love it. The urban campers love it, and they get really mad if you call them homeless. It's like, I love spending time with homeless people. I love them. I love doing portraits of them. I take their family portrait, like not exploiting them, not like here's a guy on the street, but like, let me take your photograph. I have homeless people on my business cards because nobody knows. And
I think that's lovely.
they're fascinating to talk to. Like those are my people. Like they're so fascinating because their stories are incredible. They're incredible. And I think I've met exactly what you're talking about, like people with all of those. Like Actually, in New Orleans, I made like these great friends because my husband produces live shows. So he went to New Orleans and he went to work and said, do not leave the hotel room, Robin, until I get back, which meant I got to make homeless friends. And so I would leave immediately because I'm not staying in a hotel room. And oh my gosh, like the people were just amazing. And he was like, you're gonna get killed. And I'm like, nah, man, these are my friends now. Like
These are your peeps.
These are and he's like, oh yeah. And I love them. And actually I have a friend that is in the Austin area, and he also photographs a lot of homeless people, and they're beautiful photographs. He actually sells them for fine art, and the money that he makes, he donates it to whatever homeless shelter is near the person that their portrait sold. All the money, he takes no money, goes towards, so thousands, because they're beautiful portraits. And yeah, so like even with photography, like you're giving back to these people, like they want portraits, they want pictures of their kids too. I mean,
and a lot of them left when they lost their homes. A lot of them left, you know, either in weather tragedies or whatever.
Right.
It was. They lost those memories.
Lost everything.
yeah. And you can give them prints, or you can email them. They have email addresses. You can email them, or they're on social media, or like it's very normal. They just don't.
They're probably buying Bitcoin too with a computer, you know.
Yeah,
That was the most fascinating thing when we did the Celebrate Jesus thing. The thing that was amazing to me is all of the, and virtually all of the people that were there didn't have a home, or maybe they were staying in Suitmobile Village, okay, and needed food, but they all had cell phones.
Yeah.
Everyone. There wasn't one.
You can't live without it.
Yeah.
So it's fascinating to me that
connected.
yeah. So
They also have to have that in order. They've got to have that on their records to get. A lot of them get disability checks.
right, they gotta have some way.
They can't reach you. They've got to have some kind of a connection to do that. So,
Right.
Robin, I have an idea for you. At Vogel Alcove, if you're ever so inclined, take pictures of these kids whose parents are homeless. These children are so beautiful.
Oh,
And- And they have had an experience that you wish a child would never have.
Right.
But sunniest little kids and just extraordinary.
Do
It's-
the homeless children, is there an issue with child abuse in that community?
Well, there's an issue with it everywhere, but if you ask me if it's disproportionate, I don't
Yeah.
think so.
Okay, that's kind of what I was asking.
Yeah,
Thank you.
but you know,
Just curious.
Yeah, there's nobody. And family members, you know, have always been, just like in murders, they look at who loved you the most, kind of that thing. It's that sort of situation. But these kids they just have my heart, because, you know, they love to go to the school, and they bought a school. They had just done a big capital campaign, and they bought a school that DISD was going to demolish. And they bought it and refurbished it. It is beautiful. And now they've started for middle school kids. They do after school programs when their parents are homeless. I mean, they've given them a place that understands what they're facing. It's so incredible.
I love that.
Take
Yeah,
away the fences.
I would love to do that.
It's really neat. Well, I am so sorry. I have got to run, but
Okay. Yeah, I
Thank you.
do too. But yeah, okay. So
I don't have to
Robin,
run.
I know you got to go too. So reach out to me. Let's when you pick a time, I'm going to assume that I'm coming to your studio. Okay, I want to come to your studio, and I want to talk about what we could do for this community in terms of upgrading everybody's image, if you will,
Yeah, that would be
and coming
Do you
up with
think,
something.
Robin, do you think you can make them look handsomer?
I absolutely. He's beautiful. We don't even need to make him look handsomer.
Okay, well, thank you for
maybe
that.
I'm gonna call you. We're gonna have that cup of coffee. I want to do that. So
All right, let's do it.
Thank you guys
You
so
guys-
much.
All right,
Thank you.
beautiful
And Robin,
time.
I want
Thank
to
you.
see your photos. So, and Dave, thank you so much. I think what you have started here, surely my father would say there must be stars in your crown. for what you've done, which is just wonderful. So
We like
This
them.
so just
We're
so
gonna
you
keep 'em.
understand, let me connect the dots with your father, and that is that the way I view what I do today with RP Networkers and literally everything that I did since I retired from the corporate world in 2005 is my ministry. Okay. And if
Right.
you, I was actually, I'm not saying that as somebody who doesn't understand ministry.
Right.
I was an executive pastor of a church for 3 years and an executive director of a Christian academy for 3 years. And so I do know what that means. And I decided this was building community. This is, so I don't look for sympathy for investing 25 hours or more a week in of my most valuable asset in this community. It is my God-directed ministry to serve this community, whatever it becomes. And I run my life by divine appointment. So that's just what it is. A lot of people don't know that. Randy knows that. Randy knows me.
well,
But,
I think it's wonderful. And I think if you love what you do, and if there is a give back part to that, then I think that's a ministry for all of us. I mean, I really do. I think that people tend to think about the religious. I'm a Buddhist. I'm a practicing Buddhist. So,
right.
Me too.
oh, you're kidding. So we must have tea. So,
I've told my kids and anybody that wants to hear it, I've never had a bad job and I've never had a bad boss, ever. My entire career.
wow. Well, I had a couple that I would probably trade in, but I will tell you, you learn the most from them, even if it's learning what you don't want to do.
That's right.
So,
Well, we all want to. I think once we get to a certain point in our lives, we realize because nobody gets out alive, right? So we all start to want to leave a legacy. But somebody said to me one time, and I don't even remember who I heard it the first time, but I use it all the time, and that is that you need to live your legacy, not leave your legacy. You need to live, and that's also baked into my view of. I live my ideal day every day, a version of my ideal
and
day.
that's my words for that inclusion and equity. To me, that is, and diversity, that to me is what that is. It's one thing to say it, it's another to live it.
Exactly.
And I work at that. I think that is huge. And when you look at being diverse, what about the homeless? What about bringing them in? I just think there's so many ways to be diverse, and we need them all. So,
Amen.
well, you got the most way. So, all right. So I got to catch up with.
Yeah, we could do this forever. I can see the four of us. We could keep going, but love you guys. Thank you. This will be up on the recording. I'm actually going to break the recording down into 3 pieces. The center piece will be your talk, Lynn, and then there'll be bookends of before and after. So if you're then looking at the recording on YouTube, you'll see kind of there'll be a graphic that's basically the graphic we use for your talk in between the segments. So if somebody wants to hear just your talk, or somebody wants to hear how we dealt with it before or afterwards, that's the way I'm going to structure this.
And I sent you the slide deck, so if anybody wants that, feel free. Yeah.
Okay. Beautiful. Well, thank you again.
Robin,
we'll have to have you back, Lynn.
well, I would love it. You just tell me when. I love your group. So yes, and I love what you're doing. So
Thank you.
all right, you
All right,
guys.
Robin. We'll talk to you later. Randy, as always. Will I see you? I'm going to see you tomorrow, right, Randy?
Yeah, you bet. I'm
Okay.
bringing Mike with me.
Okay. Looking forward to it.
All right,
brother.
peace out.
See ya.